benvenuto a Lee Morrison e Jamie Miller e ringraziare Dario per avermi invitati a questa intervista nel quartiere generale dell'MDCM. La prima domanda per Lee Morrison: what the participants should be expected
from the seminar? The seminar tomorrow is all relates to unarmed against the knife. So the first thing you need to understand is that no method of martial art, combatives or self-defense has the guarantee for dealing with the knife. There is no guaranteed safe way. There are concepts and ideas that will get you killed, and there are concepts and ideas that are logical and have been proven. These are what I will present to the audience tomorrow for the seminar relating to self-defense against the knife. What they will gain in the main is a good understanding of the danger of the knife, the fact, the fiction. They'll understand that the ballistic value of a knife is not available. The way in which a knife will hurt you is to stab you or bleed you out. They get an understanding of anatomy, the possible consequences of how a knife attack will kill you. A lot of people are socially mindseted that if somebody has a knife, there's nothing you can do, that you are dead. But clearly many people have been involved in many knife altercations, me included, and have survived the event. So if there is a basis on survivability where you have some self-protection concepts in play where possibly you could recognize this individual has a weapon before it's brought into play, then maybe you can do something before the knife is out. If the knife is out, then we work on a principle-based thing of if I cannot escape, I cannot grab something to equalize the disparity in threat, then I have to eliminate the threat. The actual counterpart of dealing with a knife that we employ is what will be given tomorrow. This should only be employed out of an act of sheer desperation. So what UC offers in terms of self-defense against the knife is not 100% guaranteed foolproof answer. What it offers is the chances are, in any knife altercation, there's a chance that you're going to get cut. So the way we train is geared towards our counter-offense should put you in a position where you don't get cut lethally. And you can deal with the problem and then possibly seek medical management. But the thing to understand is all combatives training is 90% attitude, 90% mental commitment to take part and to do whatever it takes to win. So there's a big mental side that I want to put across to people. So what people will understand tomorrow, that on a psychological level, you need to get big up here rather than big here in a physical sense. The physical part, of course, we will learn physical skills, but it's 90% an emotional and a mental thing. So they will learn to understand how the knife predator operates, how he will attack from ambush, how he may attack from deception. They will learn pre-threat indicators that indicate the person is reaching for a weapon or indication that he is carrying a weapon. The best time to deal with any knife is before the knife is out. So in UC we look at three facets. We look at before the knife is out, shutting the person down before he has the weapon. When the knife is out, which is the most dangerous part. And of course any kind of weapon brandish or hold up, which could relate to street robbery, attempted abduction or anything else. So we will look at all facets relating to knife. And hopefully the main thing the participants will take from the seminar is education.
Thank you. Also, I wanted to ask you, what distinguishes urban combatives and MDCM from normal common courses of martial arts?
Well, I can only speak for UC because UC is my thing. It's based on combatives training. I've been training for 37 years. I've trained in a variety of methods with a variety of different people. But my main pressure testing experience comes from experience. So I've applied what I've done in the street, I've applied what I've done on the doors, and I've come to simple conclusions. People that I have met who train in a similar way have come to similar conclusions through similar experience. So I don't know what MDCM experience is or what it's made up of entirely. I understand that Dario has influence from me. I've seen in a physical sense that some of the things he does are similar, But I can only speak for me, for UC. And for UC, I would say the main difference between that and mainstream martial art is, as I said before, you know, combatives training is 90% psychological and emotional. You have to get control of yourself and you have to get control of the mindset in order to engage in violence. So it's probably 90% mental attitude, 10% skill. This is what separates it from all other martial arts in a traditional sense, which are just 99% skill orientated. So there's no understanding of predatory behavior. There's no understanding of the adrenal response and the need to control the emotional component. Mainstream martial art is just what it is, it's art. If you need to adapt anything from martial art for the street, you need to add the psychological and emotional elements, which is really what combatives is all about.
Thank you. Domanda per Dario Callarà. Dagli sport di combattimento tipo MMA o kickboxing?
Il nostro approccio all'MDCM nasce per un'esigenza di strada, perciò analizza tutto quello che può capitare in un contesto di strada. Questo che cosa voglio dire? Voglio dire che le discipline o sport da combattimento di cui hanno un regolamento e un arbitro sul ring non sono la stessa cosa per la strada, perciò già questo è una prima regola che divide entrambe le discipline. La nostra facciamo di tutto per riuscire a gestire, non combattere, ma gestire ogni minaccia che ci capita in strada, che può essere a mani nude, col coltello, insomma, e via e via e via. Quello che diamo molta importanza nel nostro addestramento è quello di gestire lo stress, perché è il primo fattore che ci impedisce di avere una buona difesa in strada, perché avviene tutto velocemente. Il che significa che abbiamo un effetto shock che se non riesco a gestire il mio stress purtroppo mi blocco o ho vari effetti fisiologici che mi impediscono la reazione. Diciamo perciò il fulcro gira tutto in questa parte qua, gestire lo stress, poche tecniche e tanto allenamento.
Grazie. There are those who say that being healthy and be physically fit is the most important thing. How much is important physical training in your courses?
Well, it is important, but what's more important is the emotional attachment to what you're doing. Physical is obviously what we're going to be doing, but you've got to get your head right first.
I think anything in life relates to healthy body, healthy mind. You need a healthy physical ability to do stuff, but I think what he's saying is in terms of for our courses for combatives to teach people self-protection, yes, you need to be fit and able-bodied, but the most important thing is, like you just said, you need to get your mind right. So it's more a mental aspect. I would say the mental side of things is probably more important than the physical, particularly for somebody that is older, infirm, not as athletic. You know, it really comes down to mentality.
Do you have any tips for someone who could approach this world for the first time, want to learn seriously how to defend himself?
I would look at, on a physical sense, learn to hit hard, and on a tactical sense, make sure you do it first, and if you're still standing, continue your attack until the threat is subdued.
So that's the basis of what we teach. If you're going to teach the physical part of self-protection, and in a tactical sense you have the higher probability of success lies in you do something to him before he does something to you. So preemption. Everybody knows the person that goes first with the most is the best. In a physical sense, what Jamie will give his students first in the beginning, in the physical sense, is the ability to hit hard. We learn, because UC is primarily impactive. We like to strike. We like to diminish the consciousness, shut down the subject's ability to fight. And the best way to do that is shut down the computer. What creates that effect is ballistic impact to the head. So learning in a physical sense to hit real hard. This is the first thing that we give our students. Then we would teach them to do this first, tactically. Hit first, and also continue the attack until the threat subsides. So if you compare this to a combative sport dynamic, combative sport dynamic is a reciprocal exchange. So a boxer, it's his turn, my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn, my turn. Street violence is different. Street violence is the person that goes first with the initiation of violence of action and keeps going is usually the one that goes home. In a criminal sense, criminals know this. So criminals attack first, relentless, and give you no chance of recovery, no chance of retaliation. So what we do in UC is we take that predatory dynamic and we give it to the student. And the intention, if the physical cannot be avoided, cannot be de-escalated, would be to employ that physical proactive dynamic on the criminal before he uses it on you. So basically what he's saying is, we teach our students how to hit fucking hard. And then on a tactical point of view, if you can't avoid, you can't escape, and you can't de-escalate, we would encourage them to do that first and continue the assault until the threat's down. This is the first thing that we teach. From here, we deal with contingency plans for the what if. What if it wasn't possible to go first? The guy's grabbed you, the guy's punched you, you're on the ground, there's more than one, there's a weapon. Now we train for these things. But the primary, the very first thing we give them, which is what you asked, is the ability to be impactive and to hit with good force.
Here in Italy, urban aggressions and violence against most vulnerable categories happens on a daily basis. Is the same in the UK?
I think it's the same worldwide, and I think it's always been that way. I think, you know, the strong will exploit the weak. It's just how the world works. And if somebody looks potentially weak or looks like food, there's predatory profiles out there that will be happy to victimize you and happy to eat you. Somebody who is a harder target, who looks confident in their body, walks along at a brisk pace, confident gait, looks around frequently, looks alert, is possibly less likely to be selected as a victim of assault as compared to somebody that looks very nervous, lacking in confidence, looking at their feet. If somebody looks this way, then it's a known fact that predatory profiles will exploit this kind of person. Because the main people that you are talking about, the people that like to hurt women, the people that like to exploit children, the people that like to pick on the elderly, or people that couldn't possibly defend themselves, are nothing more than fucking bullies. And all bullies are people that want to violate others but not get violated. The main thing that the average street criminal stroke bully will do is select a target that is a safe option, because the two things they don't want to get hurt and they don't want to get caught. So one predator is less likely to recognize and select another predator as a victim because he's going to get hurt. It's just the same in the animal kingdom. You don't usually get a big lion looking to pick a fight with another big lion unless his pride's at threat or he's in his territory. They never cross paths because they know to avoid each other. Whereas the same lion will pick a gazelle as a victim to eat because it's weaker. It's just the way it works. You know, the strong devour the weak. So are you asking me in terms of in Italy people are victimised? Is it the same in the UK? Fuck yeah, it's the same in the UK. It's the same everywhere in the world I've been. You know, it's just the way of the world. You know, there's people out there that like to victimise smaller and weak people. And the bottom line is, if you like food, you know, there's a good chance that someone will try to eat you. So I think the very first thing you should work in terms of self-protection is to make yourself a harder target. Make yourself less available for somebody to select you as a victim. And I think a lot of that begins with self-worth and improving your self-confidence in your body language and how you represent yourself outwardly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well.
Yeah.
Okay. In which way urban combatives and then MDCM could be real help to prevent aggressions?
I think just getting if you train in a class where somebody is teaching you a combatives curriculum, the combatives curriculum, whether it's MDCM, whether it's UC, whatever it is, if it's a good curriculum, it will teach self-protection from two facets. The first is personal security. The second is combative tools. Personal security is non-physical. So if you give your student an understanding of how predatory profile happens, how people are selected, how people who are victims of crimes, how a street assault happens, give them an understanding of predatory behaviour via education. So now they're more likely to recognise what to look for. Accentuate the need for observation and awareness when you're out and about in your daily life. Too many people are selected as victims simply because they have no observation of the environment. People are with the iPod in their ears, texting on their phone. These are ideal candidates for victim selection. So the very first beginning is, I would tell a student, don't walk down the street texting on your phone. Don't put the iPod in your ear so you can't hear. Wherever you are in an urban city or out and about in your life, be aware of your environment and everyone and everything within the environment. So I would make them first more street smart. I would get them to recognise potential predatory behaviour. I would get them to accentuate how they held their posture, how they walked, how they presented themselves, so that they would look more self-confident. Just with the combination of improving their awareness, understanding predatory behaviour, and improving your outward representation in terms of self-confidence, can make the student a much harder target, much less likely to be selected as a victim of assault. Then we work the combative tools part. The combative skill set part works off the premise that the physical is inevitable. If the physical is inevitable, then your personal security has failed. So it's a contingency plan. Do you understand? We would teach them how to use their natural bodily weapons in a combative way to protect themselves. Again, I would initiate this from a proactive dynamic. I would get them to, where possible, be preemptive with this. Other additional elements might be you would teach them how to use improvised weapons, weapons of opportunity in the environment. You would also give them incremented entries into stress training. It's very important. Stress training, or anything you train in a gym environment, is put under pressure. So it's done under the presence of adrenal stress. You're not totally cognitive where you can think clearly, and there's also a non-compliant partner that's trying to make your skill set fail. If you take that to a high level in terms of stress and scenario training, then you are finding out for yourself, in a physical sense, what works for you and what doesn't. So the student is on a journey with the physical development part to find out what works for them, because body type differentiates what works for some, don't work for others. So somebody that was really big, maybe of a larger build, slower kind of metabolism, may not be able to move explosively like somebody who is smaller and faster. So the combative skill set might be adapted. So the gym environment is the kind of training laboratory where we would build skills in the person. But the combination should be both sides. You should work their personal security, enhance their observational skills, their understanding of predatory behaviour, give them regulated doses to stress so they learn how to get a handle on adrenaline, get them to know how to use their body in terms of hitting hard and various other things like this. I think if these two components are present, whether it's UC, Kelly McCann, whoever it is, if these two components of self-protection are present, then you're going to give the student all you can give them towards improving their self-protection skills.
Thank you. Violence against women's embolism are phenomenon in constant growth. There are specific techniques for women and children.
To be honest, we have a specific curriculum for women, which we teach for women, which is somewhat different. So I have women in my combative seminars and in my combative class. But if I was to teach a group of women, whether it's from the Rape Crisis Centre or a domestic violence unit, or just a group of women from the place where I live, I would teach them in a specific way. Before you look at any solution in terms of teaching somebody something, you need to understand the problem. And in the UK, the majority of assaults on women happen from within a domestic violent environment. So the person or the aggressor is the husband, the boyfriend, an abusive partner, an abusive relative. Attacks on women in the UK, up to about 75 to 80%, happen from somebody known to them. Then you get attacks in the street where a woman is attacked, or a bag is stolen, or sexual assault, or whatever else is the motivation. But primarily, a lot of people in self-defense teach women the same way as they teach men. There has to be a difference. then you have to acknowledge the fact that in a physical sense, teaching women how to impactfully strike and everything else may not be the best thing to give somebody, particularly if they're only coming to one class. So what women do very naturally is they rip, gouge, tear and grab. So using their natural weapons for ripping and tearing and attacking the eyes and the vulnerabilities of a man would be accentuated first. Then I'd work impact tools such as elbows and knees and everything else. The way I teach women is different because the rules of engagement are often different. It's less likely that the guy comes up to the woman in the street. He could, and it does happen, and now she has to use a fence and a preemptive strike. Whereas in my experience, women in a domestic violence setting is she's making the dinner, the husband comes in, he's a little drunk, he's sat down, he's pissed off about something, and all of a sudden the dinner goes up in the air and he punches her in the face. It's a very different emotional delivery platform. So the way I teach women is different and reflects that. In terms of teaching children, we have a reality-based self-defense stroke UC combatives program for children, but you can't teach children combatives. It's too aggressive, it's too brutal, there's too many elements that need to be considered in a physical sense. So when I teach kids, we have kindergarten kids from 4 to 7, then we might have 11 to 13, and then we might have 13 to school leaving 17 years old. Each of these separate categories would be taught in a different way. There's also differences between how you would work with boys and how you would work with girls. But in the main way that we would teach self-defense system for kids is to make them aware of stranger danger, because the first key element should be stranger danger, and then of course anti-bullying, because bullying is often reflected in school and begins from the play yard. So we would equip them possibly in a fun-based environment, because understand young children have a very short attention span. So anything you teach them has to be game-based or fun-based. There's only so many physical skills that you can teach, but we do teach kids. But in short, I teach women, I teach men, I teach operatives, and occasionally I teach children. We do have a program, but it would be different. It would be a different way of teaching them. But bottom line is, the commonality in all of those things is getting the student to understand their self-worth, their self-importance. There's going to be a need in life, not necessarily to stand tall, but there's certainly a need at times to stand up. You understand?
Thank you. The techniques you teach can be used by anyone, or there are specific requirements?
Well, I think Lee sort of just answered that in what he just said, really. I think anybody can learn something, take something from it, but obviously, if they have some sort of disability or something like that, then we're going to have to tailor it for them.
Or adapt in some way.
Yeah. There's definitely something they can take from this, definitely.
But the thing that you need to understand, we don't use the word techniques. It's just, for me, I personally don't use it. It's a pet hate. I don't like the word. Too many martial arts, too many self-defense like to accumulate techniques. So they have 1,000 ways of doing something. The commonality to any good self-protection program or combatives program is the toolbox is small, because less is more, particularly under stress. So when we're talking stress, fight stress or fight duress, we're talking what you learn in a gym environment must work under fight stress. And what will be present during fight stress is fear, adrenaline, disorientation, confusion, fatigue, and pain. When you add all of these state elements to somebody's physiology, most technical things don't work. That's why it's a known fact that fine motor skill and complex motor skill, which is what you see in most martial sport and most traditional martial art, will fail under fight stress. What is actually enhanced under fight stress is gross motor skill. So all the tools in UC are gross motor in nature. So in answer to your question, can anybody learn gross motor skill? Well, fuck yeah. Anybody that can pick up and throw a ball, anybody that can grab somebody and pull them, anybody that can physically able-bodiedly perform a large gross motor movement can perform a skill set. It gets a little bit complicated if the person is maybe disabled in some way, has some neurological damage where they can't use their limbs properly, then you might need an adaptation. But in the main, pretty much anybody can learn combatives. That's why I always say that I could teach anyone. I could teach your grandmother in a phone box. So yes.
Thank you. Have you ever noticed a growth in self-confidence in the skills of the trainees?
Oh, definitely, yeah, massively. Some people come in and they don't stand tall, they don't hold themselves very well, and within a short period of time they change completely.
Yeah, there's actually
positive.
There's recognisably demonstrable changes in their physiology. So somebody who is lacking in confidence will often slope in posture, will often live their life what you call below eye line. Everything is fat downward focused, whereas somebody who's more vibrant, confident, more in love with life is kind of eyes are above eye line. Where they stand tall, they're much more energetic. And what you see within a very short period of time in combatives training is that physiology changes. The actual person now looks more confident, sounds more confident. So even if he never has a situation in his life, he's already equipped himself with some good self-protection attributes, because the attribute of being more self-confident and appearing more self-confident will again make you less likely to be selected as a victim. So changes like that, absolutely. But in a very short period of time, physical changes as well, in people's ability to access aggression, whereas previously it was something that they couldn't do. So to give an example, we've got a student that's been with us about 3 months called Stuart. He's from a middle class background, very soft, very kind, very nice person, never experienced any violence in his life. So he had a problem with accessing aggression for his skill set in a combative sense in training, but already he's transformed. He understands it's a resource that's necessary if he ever finds himself in a situation where he has to fight, and his physical skill set must be fueled by this accessible, emotional, controlled aggression. And he's put the two together, he understands where they belong, and just outside of his combatives training, he just appears different. He looks more confident, he stands taller, he's much more likely to engage in conversation and make eye contact, where previously he may have not done those things. So yes, I would say there's massive changes quickly.
MDCM started a campaign on social media to invite and tell people to be wary of those who act as masters and use techniques and like in the movies.
Charlatans, you mean? Charlatans?
Yeah.
So what is the question? Is there many? Have I come across any?
Do you also notice that there are too many of them who act this way just to increase the number of trainees?
Yeah, there's many people that do that. I mean, in a martial arts market, you have a martial arts umbrella, right? You have traditional martial arts, of which the composition of training is mainly children. So from a marketing point of view, for teaching martial arts, that's where the money is. So that part doesn't belong in combatives. Then you have combat sport, then you have self-defense, then you have reality-based self-defense, then you have combatives. There's any veteran instructor of combatives, close combat, whatever you want to call it, through the decades will tell you, you will never be a rich man from teaching combatives, never. It's a small market, it hits possibly 15% of the population, because people don't want to train hard. They don't want to get hit, they don't want to get banged about. But like anything in life, if you're going to require a skill worth having, there has to be some sacrifice, because nothing worth having comes easy. So having the ability to be able to protect yourself in a physical sense against violence, having the ability to protect your family and those you care about, that's a valuable thing. You ain't going to be able to develop that valuable attribute without getting hurt, getting banged about, getting, some injuries. Combatives training should hurt. It shouldn't injure if it's done intelligently. But with that said, people don't want to scenario train, scenario test. They don't want to put it under pressure with somebody bigger, stronger than them with compliancy thrown away. So for that reason, a lot of combative instructors, even at a high level, don't get masses of students. So what that's allowed a niche for is people that are charlatans coming into the environment, using the word combatives as a pseudonym, if you like. It's a buzzword now that attracts people, and what they're really offering is a diluted version of martial arts in jeans. That will not work, has not been tested. These people are dry land swimmers. So what they are is they're people that are sat on a deck chair on a beach, telling people how to swim in a watered environment, but they've never got fucking wet. Well, they add insult to injury when they call themselves master or whatever else. Now, I know in Italy, the word master means maestro, means teacher, right? That's what it means. But in the US, in the UK, in Australia, in other European countries, it's quite considered obnoxious to call yourself master. Because you're kind of putting yourself on a pedestal above everybody else. I would never, even at my level, consider myself to use such a term, because I just don't like it. I know that I am a teacher, I am recognised, I'm high in my field, but to me I'm still a student, I'm still learning. But these guys that jump on and teach this diluted method of, call it combatives in its martial arts and jeans, and say they've got 15 down grades in 37 different martial arts, and they've got the title of master and all that. There's many people like this, and these are the people that you should seek to avoid when you are looking for a good combatives instructor. A little bit of common sense is necessary. What you have now as a valuable tool is YouTube. So go through YouTube and look and use your own mind. Ask yourself, does that sound logical? Does that sound valid? If you find a good instructor, even a good instructor of a reputable level, you should question everything. Nobody should take what I say to them as the way. I ain't a master of shit. I got conclusions based on real experience. I have a lot more real experience than most others, and I have a lot less experience than some I know. But what I know well. And in terms of when I present this as a core curriculum, it's not for everybody. So I guess because high-level combatives are not for everybody, there's naturally going to be a marketplace for people that are, as you say, charlatans. So yes, they do exist, and they should be analysed and they should be avoided.
What do you think about combatives and MDCM and COM?
What do I think? Well, to be honest, I know that Dario's a brother, he's of a similar mind, he trains in a similar way. In terms of, I'm not massively familiar with his curriculum. What I've seen from his curriculum, it looks like it's been influenced by UC, it looks like he's taken it from me, and I can see that there's preemption, continuous attack, and attacks on a high-low, and various combative principles that we all employ, whether it's Senshido, whether it's Kelly McCann, whether it's UC, whoever it is. And I can see the commonality there between UC and what Dario is doing. So I can say that it's what I've seen of it. I can't elaborate more than that because I'm not massively familiar. But what I've seen from his clips and our conversations and the way I've seen him train in my seminars, I say he's been influenced by good combative principles, whether it's from me or from somebody else. So I think he's on the right track. There's a commonality.
Thank you.
Dario, sì. Ci saranno altri incontri e collaborazioni future con Lee Morrison e Jamie Miller?
Sicuramente, perché mi riallaccio alla domanda e alla risposta di Mr. Lee, che praticamente abbiamo in comune i principi e noi diciamo che organizziamo dei seminari perché nonostante il passato, collaborando con vari israeliani o maestri di altro genere, abbiamo riscontrato proprio, oltre alla similitudine del tipo di approccio, proprio le esperienze molto simili, che sono quelle esperienze che chiaramente non si apprendono in palestra, ma ahimè purtroppo si apprendono nei quartieri oggi di Roma, che è la nostra città, ma in tutti i quartieri d'Italia, e che praticamente l'aggressività è sempre in aumento, perciò oggi attraverso lì diciamo che riusciamo a dare a tutti una risposta un po' più concreta, ed ecco perché da qui al andando avanti si faranno sempre più seminari insieme a Lee, dove tratteremo tantissimi argomenti, tra l'altro, dal coltello al bastone, bottiglie, analizzeremo tutte le armi comuni, vedremo anche di fare qualcosa con le armi da fuoco insieme per persone abilitate all'uso dell'arma, ma non solo. Quello che conto tantissimo nell'esperienza di Lee, che chiaramente ne ha molto più di me, è quella dell'attitudine di come affrontare un'aggressione in strada, che purtroppo ahimè negli altri corsi scarseggia, e diciamo che questo è il nostro punto di forza, riuscire ad educare le persone all'eventuale aggressione. Ecco, questo è proprio il concetto che intendo dare un po' a tutti quanti, e attraverso l'esperienza di Lee e attraverso la sua attitudine che piace tantissimo, dovremmo riuscire a dare un bel prodotto.
Cosa spera che rimanga ai suoi ragazzi dall'esperienza di questo seminario di 2 giorni?
Allora, da un seminario chiaramente non si può pretendere di acquisire tantissime nozioni, ma quello che conto tantissimo invece è dei principi, 2 o 3 principi in un seminario appresi per poi lavorarci durante l'anno, per riorganizzare poi di nuovo il tempo, l'incontro insieme a Lee.
Voglio ringraziare tutti, thank you for being here and answering our question.
Grazie a voi.
E vi raccomando di seguirci sui social per eventi anche futuri.